Greetings Duplicant and welcome to The Breach. In today's episode we're going to concentrate on building an industrial brick, which will be a big milestone for our colony. Like the last episode where we built our twin freezer setup kitchen, because now we're not worried about any overproduction of food. I have a very strong feeling that this episode will be released a lot later than I'd actually like, and that's because there's a lot of background stuff that takes quite some time. For example, digging out an area or pumping gas out of a particular area does take time, and it's not worth recording because it's a bit boring. So I've kind of cut that out, so it'll probably be released maybe Saturday or Sunday, this episode, not the normal Friday. Because the industrial brick we're going to build is going to be a permanent structure, we are going to need some refined resources. For example, we need to get some crude oil and refine that into petroleum. We've already broken into the oil biome, so we have access to diamond, which is a very good medium for transferring heat. So as you can see on screen, I've got my duplicates working on what will be a airtight room. Once I have a liquid lock in place, I will pump out all the carbon dioxide, put an oil refinery in there, and then refine about 2 reservoirs worth of petroleum. This petroleum will then be used as the cooling medium within my metal refineries. I didn't need to build the refinery in an enclosed room because it's that late in the game that I have excess natural gas and power and I could just throw things around willy-nilly. But I will probably want to get this carbon dioxide and use it later, so I'd rather not be filtering out lots and lots of different types of gases. So just to make my life easier later on, I've decided to build an enclosed room. Really is nice to see how quickly our duplicants get the jobs done now that they've had a couple of hundred cycles to skill up. On the 29th of February 2024, Clay released a new roadmap for Oxygen Not Included. For the last few years since the Spaced Out DLC, we'll be getting small content updates every couple of months. They are deciding to change this course and go for content-focused DLCs. It's all rather vague, but they are mentioning that they hope for the first DLC to be out this year. Reading the comments section, which is always a bad move, some people really hate this idea that Clay are going to be charging for DLCs again. I don't personally have a problem with this. I've played over 1,400 hours. And for both the base game and the DLC, I've paid no more than 30 quid for it. So that works out that I've paid 2.1 pence an hour for my entertainment. When the DLC does come out, I'll be more than happy to shunt a few quid Clay's way to pay for it. Clay, because of their commitment to the free updates, has a good store of goodwill from me at the moment, and I'm happy to put money into the company that has supplied so much entertainment. But I am hoping that any DLC that I pay for is worth the price of admission, so to speak. I would be very peeved if they pulled a horse armour type DLC on me. I'm going to refine about 2 reservoirs worth of petroleum. A portion of this refined petroleum will be used in the metal refineries as the cooling liquid. The rest will be used if I need to have a high temperature liquid lock. The limitation of this basic setup is the outgassing of the natural gas. Once the pressure reaches 5 kilograms per tile, the refiner will be overpressured and will therefore stop working. This is only a limited run, so I'm not all that bothered about that. This map has 3 volcanoes on it and I want to utilise those to hopefully produce natural gas eventually. I placed down 2 water reservoirs in a bath of water to keep them cool so they don't overheat, and then I remembered to build the reservoirs out of gold amalgam for the extra headroom and heat instead of cobalt. Just caught the room turning into a vacuum, which is nice. Sorting out the pipework for the liquid pumps and drawing power from the spawn, because this is only a temporary setup and I only need a little bit of power. On the last episode, Ozymundos made a comment that my lights don't actually work for the gas range, and he's completely correct. I have a clue why that happened. Is because I'd been playing around with the rehydration and my kitchen was only 4 tiles high. I should have built it 5 tiles high and had room for the automatic sweepers and the automation for the lights as well, but I didn't, so yeah, he's right. In the background I did some upgrades to the base, but I've also accessed this hydrogen vent. I wanted to utilise this vent because it'll help me supply heat to my industrial brick. The hydrogen is released at 500 degrees Celsius. I can use that heat to warm up some carbon dioxide, which will then feed to slicksters. Slicksters are great because they use up carbon dioxide, which is a waste product, and they supply either petroleum or oil and food. As I have 3 carbon dioxide vents on this map as well, it makes sense to utilise them. Those pumps have been working for quite some time to remove the gas from the industrial brick and will be working for the foreseeable future as well. The first thing we're going to do is build a way of controlling the heat transfer between the hydrogen and the industrial brick. To do that, we're going to use mechanical airlocks and automation to be able to control the transfer of heat between the metal tiles. Once we have the industrial brick up and running and we have it filled with carbon dioxide, we might need to improve the way that the heat is distributed between the metal tiles and the carbon dioxide. But that's something for me to deal with later on. Because I'll be building these mechanised airlock doors in an enclosed area, they will be able to transfer the heat when they are closed. But once they open and there's a vacuum where the doors were, they'll be no longer able to transfer the heat, and that is how we control the temperature transfer between the hot hydrogen and the cooler carbon dioxide. The plan for this industrial brick is to use all the heat produced by the outputs of industrial machinery to heat up carbon dioxide, which will then be consumed by the slicksters. On this map I have 3 carbon dioxide vents, which should give me access to a pretty large quantity of carbon dioxide. My main power source is natural gas, which will also give me a supply of carbon dioxide as well. I should be able to run 3 to 4 slickster ranches with all of this carbon dioxide I have available. So basically I'm splitting the difference between a hot industrial brick and a cold industrial brick. I'm hoping that I can get the temperatures high enough that the slicksters will evolve to be able to produce petroleum instead of crude oil. I've built my airlocks and remembered to put in automation, but I haven't actually tied the automation to a switch to stop the hydrogen transferring its heat to the industrial brick at the moment. I'll remember to do that later on. Although I do want to utilise the heat generated by industrial equipment, the metal refinery's output will be just too hot. The metal refineries will be filled with petroleum as their cooling medium, and that petroleum will be cycled through a steam room to cool it down. For good heat transfer within the steam room itself, we're using radiant copper piping. Sometimes getting the pipe work just exactly how you want it takes a little bit more time than you'd like, especially when you're recording something. It looks like you're just faffing around. So I'm sorting out the insulated pipe work because I don't want to be transferring heat to any of the automation systems I put in along the bottom of the steam room. We're going to make sure the duplicant working on the metal refinery is working in a well-lit area to get that bonus. As you can see, I'm only building 2 metal refineries. One will be primary for producing steel and the other one will be for all the other metals that I require. I used to quite often build industrial bricks with 3 or 4, maybe 5 of the metal refiners, but I find that it was just overkill. Metal ores have specific uses in your base, so you don't want to refine them and be lacking in what you require. Well, the temporary oil refiner is all set up and ready to go, so we'll just power it and start refining the crude oil. As you can see, the petroleum is coming out of the refiner at about 75 degrees Celsius, going into the reservoirs and being cooled down by the bath that it is having in the water. If the oil you're feeding into the refinery is warmer than what I'm actually doing it, you can end up with petroleum that is too warm for an oil reservoir and cause it damage. We'll get round to adding our 2 metal refiners. We're building both out of ceramics. just like we did with our temporary setup all those cycles ago. We're also building the pipework that goes to and from the steam room with ceramic as well. I've just realised that I'm transferring the heat from the hydrogen into the industrial brick, and I don't want that to happen at the moment, so I'm going to set up some temporary automation. A simple switch shall suffice for now. The switch sends a red signal to the doors open and stops the heat transfer. As you can see, I made a mistake here. I built the aquatuner out of something that wasn't steel, and I'd set up all the pipe work and then realised I'm having to replace the aquatuner with a steel one. We'll have a quick intermission now and see what Play is offering us in the blueprints. Well, we're going no rest for the wicked at the moment, and we're going to start measuring up for the Slicksters ranches. They're a very similar design to the stone hatch ranches we built at the start, except for the mesh tiles that allows the oil to drip down. The maximum size for a ranch is 96 tiles. We're going to restrict the movement of the Slicksters by using a door. This will reduce the time it takes for Slicksters to move to the grooming station. And as I've already mentioned, below the grooming station we'll have the mesh tiles to allow the petroleum to drop through, or crude oil, depending on what type of Slicksters I have. There is no need to set up a feeding station within a Slickster ranch because they breathe in carbon dioxide and that's what they feed off. I checked the size of the rooms that we've built and there were 104 tiles. So pretty close, but we'll just reduce the size of both of these ranches by 8 tiles. 3 of those tiles will be a door and another tile atop the door so the Slicksters can't escape. Then we'll just fill up the end of the room. And as soon as we've got those last tiles built, we now have 2 ranches ready to go to fill with Slicksters. We then just mirror the 2 ranches on the other side of a pole and ladders setup. While the ranches are being built, we'll add in the automation. We'll add the conveyor rails to join up with the stone hatches, automatically taking the eggs to the evolution chamber. Eventually we'll upgrade the sweepers and the loaders to steel. Quickly just checking that I have built these at the maximum size I possibly can for the ranch. While we're waiting for the industrial brick to be pumped out, we'll start tying in the carbon dioxide vents. The carbon dioxide is released at minus 55 degrees Celsius. We'll be pumping this carbon dioxide through standard pipes so it will warm up on its journey towards the industrial brick. The vent inside the brick itself will just have to brute force heat it up, but that's why the industrial brick is sat on top of the hydrogen vent. Because I haven't used a carbon scrubber in this base, I have access to a lot of CO2 at the moment, which will be very handy because CO2 is really rubbish at absorbing heat. I'll want to quickly pressurise the industrial brick to make the most of the carbon dioxide gas as possible. I'm going to set up each collection area with an atmospheric sensor so I have a small amount of gas ready for emergency use. I just noticed this vent was erupting, so I'm going to open it up and analyse it and let the CO2 spill out into the atmosphere. The CO2 will not be wasted, I can assure you, and I can also I'll delegate the job to deal with this to future me. Smart batteries are undeniably useful, but they don't store a great amount of power, so we're going to add battery storage within the industrial brick itself. Now we're going to load up each of the refiners with 800 kilograms of petroleum. We're going to return all the unused petroleum back down to the reservoirs, because we'll need to use this pipework for other liquids. While we're at this end of the map, we'll drain the crude oil from the pipework as well. I nearly forgot to return this pipe full of petroleum to storage. I could have got away with it because as soon as I used that metal refiner, the storage would refill from the small pipe, leaving me with just a pipe to delete. I finally had enough and decided that I'll start blocking part of the industrial brick in. In hindsight, I probably should have done this from the start. I thought I could pump out the gases and build the industrial brick at the same time. I was obviously wrong. I made my life more difficult and slowed down the editing process, which is why you didn't get an episode last week. Hopefully I won't make a mistake like this again anytime soon. By building tiles within the industrial brick, I am compressing the gas that is still remaining in there. Therefore the gas pumps will be getting rid of more gas at once. Well, things are actually starting to move in the industrial brick. We are presently looking at the element overlay, and particularly looking at the gases. you'll notice that the gas pumps are in a vacuum and are no longer working. With the way oxygen not included works out its physics, the gases are now being deleted to create the vacuum. But strangely enough, at the present, this is a slow process. It's a slow process because I decided to build while we were still pumping the gas out, and I've constricted the flow of gas. My fault. It's all my fault. The steam room's now a vacuum, so we're just going to do a quick sweep and then we'll block it in. We've already created the vacuum in the double liquid lock, and the conductive joint plates are already in a vacuum to the outside world. This is taking quite some time, so let's speed things up with the magic of editing. The steam room's now clear of all debris, so we can seal it up. The pipe that was bringing the petroleum up for the metal refineries is now bringing water up for the steam room. Right at the start of this episode, when I first started editing it, I thought it would just be a day or so late. How foolish I was to believe that. It's now Friday and I'm just getting to the end of the editing process. I already have a list of things I need to get done for the next episode, like tie all the carbon dioxide into the industrial brick. I've also spotted a few problems around the base that needs to be sorted out pronto, and I'll need to get a lot of digging out done as well. I'm pretty certain it's safe to dig out the areas that I blocked in. Yes. So after I'd vacuumed everything out and sealed everything up, I cracked open the CO2 vent to start replacing the atmosphere. The rock crusher's been given jobs to sort out some lime for the metal refinery. The metal refinery is starting to work through the iron ore and to create some steel. And here come the duplicants to start with all the jobs I've set them. Now we have some carbon dioxide in the industrial brick. I've added the slicksters to the ranch so we can get them tamed and start producing eggs. So it will be a priority in the next episode, increasing the amount of carbon dioxide that the slickster has available. We will also need to make sure that we're getting the temperature up to at least 60 degrees Celsius. Ah yes, a bit of a priority for the next episode is add steam turbines to the industrial brick and tie the aquatuner into a cooling loop. Well, thank you very much for watching the trials and tribulations of building an industrial brick. I hope I see you next time for more shenanigans. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the other side.